So, baseball, most notorious drug dealer by baseball doesn't exist.
In 2007, a fake doctor who had a clinic in a tanning salon created a performance-enhancing drug protocol that served multiple MVPs, All-Stars, and potential future Hall of Famers. It also caused 10 arrests, multiple death threats, an investigation from Florida police, an investigation from the DEA, and even an investigation from MLB themselves, which allegedly included investigators sleeping with potential witnesses, paying off potential witnesses, and spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to buy stolen documents from criminals. This resulted in more than 15 players being punished, including the longest suspension in Major League history. One player publicly exposed other players, including his own teammate, for using PEDs to make himself seem less guilty. One created an entirely fake website to prove his innocence, and one player even claimed the drug tester purposely tainted his sample because he was anti-Semitic. And this entire controversy created a war between Alex Rodriguez and MLB, in which both sides accused the other of multiple crimes, which got people fired and even sent to prison, and concluded with a legendary courtroom showdown which allegedly featured a fake protest, an altercation between lawyers and reporters, an altercation between lawyers and other lawyers, and concluded with someone having a severe courtroom meltdown, ending the most bizarre scandal in the history of Major League Baseball.
Electric suspension tonight for baseball star Alex Rodriguez.
Prescribed to address Ramirez's erectile dysfunction.
The most despicable liar in the history of baseball.
Alex Rodriguez and or his associates were involved in threatening to kill Tony Bosch.
Okay, well, this sounds like a movie.
On January 12, 2014, MLB orchestrated a segment on 60 Minutes with one goal: make Alex Rodriguez look as guilty as possible.
Tonight, you are going to hear details of the evidence for the first time.
His actions were beyond comprehension.
The most important and controversial interview on this segment was done by Tony Bosch. He says that when he got there, he had drugs and alcohol waiting for him in his dressing room to make him feel more comfortable. They were put there as a gift, but he still doesn't really know who the gift was from. MLB wanted him to go on 60 Minutes and tell the world A-Rod took performance-enhancing drugs and that he, as A-Rod's personal doctor, supplied them. But Tony Bosch wasn't even a real doctor. He did, however, know a ton of doctors, and many of them were his family members. The most famous one was his cousin Orlando.
Love him or hate him, Orlando Bosch is tonight released from prison.
Who, according to the Justice Department, committed 30 acts of sabotage, was convicted for firing a homemade rocket at a cargo ship, and masterminded a plan to destroy a commercial airplane with 76 passengers on it. And after all of this, he was also officially given his own day by the city of Miami for his anti-communist cause. Tony Bosch's parents were a lot less controversial. They migrated to the US from Cuba and became successful physicians and were able to give Tony an upper-class upbringing. According to Tony Bosch, this did not stop him from getting into trouble. In high school, he was kicked off the baseball team for doing drugs and not showing up to practice, and his lack of discipline may have stopped Tony from achieving his goal of being a doctor. However, it did not stop him from becoming a fake doctor. Tony Bosch was already in his 40s, but went back to school and got his degree from Central America Health Sciences University, a school in Belize with less than 500 students. At this point, Tony Bosch had already been divorced, had been sued for unpaid child support, had to foreclose on a home, had multiple failed medical businesses, and had been sued by his investors. The degree he got from Belize by no means makes it legal for him to call himself a doctor, but this did not stop him. He framed his diploma, bought a lab coat with Dr. Bosch stitched on it, and opened up an anti-aging clinic in Florida. His business model was basically to prescribe patients with things like synthetic testosterone, human growth hormone, HGC, and peptides to basically anybody who wanted it. These substances are legal to prescribe for several rare medical conditions, and it's safe to assume that Bosch's patients mostly didn't have these conditions. And even if they did, he's not even a doctor, so he can't write a prescription. But luckily for Bosch, there are a ton of retired doctors in Florida who are willing to rent out their prescription pads to fake doctors like Bosch if they give them a cut of the profits. Bosch's father was one of them. He used his name and several other doctors to prescribe medications to basically anybody who wanted it. At one point, Bosch was writing prescriptions with the name of a doctor who had been dead for years and didn't even notice.
I thought he was still alive, and then his partner told me no, he died.
Pretty much everything about this is illegal.
He's so happy
In
about it.
Florida, not really. In large part due to a man named Rick Scott.
I mean, it's Florida. I mean, what the heck is going on in Florida? I mean, this is GTA City, so yeah, understandable.
Remember me, the handsome bald guy?
Who oversaw one of the largest healthcare frauds in history. He was the CEO of a company that was fined $1.7 billion for giving patients tests they didn't need. Giving fake $1.7 billion for
what is going on? He looks like the Joker, what the fuck?
Patients tests they didn't need, giving fake diagnoses and healthcare visits to people who didn't qualify for them, all in order to receive hundreds of millions of dollars from the government. And in 2011, this man also became the governor of Florida.
Of course.
You're an embarrassment to our state!
Sweet. Rick Scott passed legislation that took away millions of dollars in funding to the Department of Health, which was meant to investigate illegal medical operations like the one Tony Bosch ran. According to the Miami New Times, over a 4-year span, the Department of Health investigated and referred 206 cases of unlicensed practitioners to Florida law enforcement. Only 4 of those cases led to convictions. This has created a massive anti-aging market in Florida where people basically just sell HGH and testosterone out of a doctor's office to anybody who wants it.
I mean, frankly, I'm not surprised. A couple months ago on the channel, I reacted to an amazing mini TV series called Dubsick. I very much recommend it. And it's basically like a fictionalized retelling of the 90s Oxycontin epidemic in the US, which started when like a rich pharmaceutical company basically decided to try to convince doctors to start prescribing more and more like Oxycontin to patients, which was like a type of morphine, I guess, and you know, basically more that they needed, more that they should, basically prescribed it for like any kind of pain. And the thing was like ultra addictive, but basically they would tell the doctor that like this thing is not addictive, and they basically created this like massive empire with like billions of dollars of money from basically lying about it. And all of the US government regulation stuff did not manage to stop it for like a long time because they're so inefficient and it's so like stopped by bureaucracy and corruption and everything, right? So I'm not surprised, like anytime I see something like this, it's like, yeah, I'm not surprised.
This type of gray market attracts criminals from across the world. It also attracts athletes, and in 2007, Tony Bosch was introduced to his most famous client, not named Alex Rodriguez. He was Tony Bosch's first major league client, and he just so happened to be one of the best and most outlandish baseball players of all time. Manny Ramirez became Tony Bosch's first VIP client, meaning he traveled with him everywhere to give him a specific protocol of PEDs that would change constantly. According to Bosch, his job description also meant recruiting women for Manny and sleeping in the same room with him on the road, saying he was asked to read Manny bedtime stories because Ramirez had trouble falling asleep by himself. Bosch's protocol required him to give players small doses of banned substances at different times throughout the day to maximize their energy recovery and performance. He used things like HGH, testosterone, peptides.
I mean, it's nice to be nice to your bros, right? Like reading bedtime stories for your bros is it's nice, you know, take care of your bros.
And various other substances, all banned by MLB, mixed with other legal substances like zinc, melatonin, and amino acids. All of them serve their own unique purpose. The banned substances were taken in such low doses and at strategic times, if taken correctly, they would not show up on random drug tests. Bosch's clients would be able to take a testosterone pill that they would call gummies moments before a game began, and by the time the game ended, it would be completely out of their system. Bosch may have been a fake doctor, but his protocol seemed to work.
But did that actually like help your performance?
In 2007, Manny Ramirez only hit 20 home runs, the lowest total of his career. The next year, under Bosch's protocol, he hit 37 home runs, had an OPS above 1,000, and finished 4th in MVP voting. He was 36 years old. But in 2009, after getting traded to the Dodgers,
I'm back,
and being one of the best players in the world while being there, Manny tested positive. According to Bosch, Manny accidentally took a testosterone cream that was supposed to be taken on off days on the day of a game and randomly got drug tested. Manny Ramirez publicly claimed he was prescribed a PED from a doctor but thought it was legal, and a source close to Manny even told the media that his drug test was due to medicine he took for erectile dysfunction. Tony Bosch and his father's names were made public as the people responsible for supplying Manny, and soon the DEA was investigating them both. This seemed like it could be the end of Tony Bosch's clinic, but in reality, it only...
I always find it interesting that like athletes do this a lot, right? They will, they want to be seen as the best, so they will use drugs to cheat, but then when they get caught, they're willing to say that like they take the drug for erectile dysfunction, which is kind of embarrassing, right? It's like, I mean, it's not really embarrassing, but it's like for them who want like this image of being very cool and winner and like super athlete, it seems kind of embarrassing. So it's weird that like they take drugs to look cool and appear manly and great players, but then when they get caught, they're willing to like throw away their pride so easily and just claim something like that, right?
made his business more popular. Bosch laid low and was never charged. According to him, once everybody found out he was supplying Manny Ramirez, he went from seeing 5 to 7 patients a week to seeing around 60 patients a week. Bosch is mostly known for supplying major leaguers, but a large part of his clients were either regular professional workers or amateur athletes, and a lot of these amateur athletes came with their parents. In 2013, a survey found that HGH use amongst teenagers had doubled in only 1 year. The survey also found that 11% of high school students had tried HGH before, and an even crazier stat found that HGH prescriptions for teens in Palm Beach County, Florida, from 2003 to 2011 rose 376%, the same county Tony Bosch's clinic was located in. According to Bosch, a man named Laser would help him recruit high school players to his clinic. He was a pitching coach for the University of Miami, but left after he let high school players use the Miami facility and took recruits on boat rides. He was also fired from another coaching job after dropping his pants in front of the whole team and asking them if they quote-unquote had a pair of these. However, the school says other than that, he was a good leader and administrator. Laser was accused of recruiting high school players and even taking his own sons to Bosch's clinic for testosterone. He was even supposed to be arrested for distribution of the substance, but never was because he was in the hospital after breaking up a fight between 2 dogs.
I'm laughing, but it's pretty fucking sad. I mean, you know, it's sad when it's like adult player like cheating like that, but the fact that it's like, you know, high school students, right? They're still kids, they're stupid, and their own parents are like willing to do this, right? Like basically assist them in cheating. It's just sad. I don't know.
However, Laser took a plea deal and was only punished for possession of testosterone. It is not clear if Laser or anybody actually actively recruited high school players to the clinic, but Bosch admits that he gave at least 18 kids as young as 15 years old PEDs, because sadly, Tony Bosch would pretty much work with anybody, including criminals, and the most noticeable one was a man named Oogie. He's been arrested for grand theft, drug offenses, burglary, and was charged with domestic violence and battery. He also somehow happened to be an acquaintance with Alex Rodriguez. Oogie became Tony Bosch's black market testosterone supplier. Because Bosch had so many clients, he couldn't get all the substances he needed through prescriptions. Oogie also helped Tony Bosch open up a new clinic called Boca Body, which was a clinic located in a Boca tanning salon.
Okay.
Red carpet opening of Boca Tanning Club, Wealthy Manors. So have a wonderful time and don't forget to stay tan.
And this is where Tony Tony Bosch met a guy named Porter Fisher. Bosch put Porter Fisher on one of his protocols, and soon Fisher surrounded himself with Bosch anytime he could. Porter Fisher is just a random guy who likes tanning and testosterone, but he would go on to become a lot more, because he would do something to get back at Tony Bosch that would ruin Bosch's life, put his own life in serious danger, and basically cause the biggest PED scandal in baseball.
So he's gonna expose him.
Bosch's new testosterone dealer, Oogie, would go on to introduce him to Alex Rodriguez, who told him right away that he wanted whatever Manny Ramirez was taking. Tony Bosch did, and within a week, A-Rod hit 3 home runs in a single game. He was immediately Bosch's newest and biggest VIP client, but at this point, he was one of many. It seems like Bosch was extremely busy giving players across the league his attention. He claims he injected one player at a gas station. One player told him hours before a game he needed help with an injection, so he drove to Marlins Park, picked up the player who was in full uniform, went to a local Pollo Tropical, and injected him in the bathroom. He even says he once had to take a blood sample from A-Rod in a Miami nightclub. The two continued partying, and Bosch ended up losing the vial of...
I mean, are they babies or what? Aren't they grown men? Can't they inject themselves? I mean, like, does the guy really need to be there to, like, just inject a syringe?
blood. The two literally crawled on the ground in the crowded club trying to find it. Bosch's laundry list of major leaguers included several All-Stars, MVPs, and players who seemed like locks to be Hall of Famers. But today, the chances that any of these players are going to make the Hall of Fame have decreased significantly because starting in 2011, Bosch's clients began testing positive. And other than Alex Rodriguez, the first one of them to fall went as far as anybody.
In the UFC that, you know, I'm quite a fan and I watch, there used to be something like this in the 2000s and early 2010. You know, there was already drug testing, right, for like the classic stuff, but there was like a lot of fighters who would get an exemption from doctors for like something called TRT, testosterone replacement therapy. And basically it would be claimed that it was because, you know, they had a disease that made their testosterone very low compared to a normal person, so they needed it. But obviously, like, it was a lie. They just wanted like more testosterone than a normal person because it helps with like getting bigger, stronger, taking more damage. And that was kind of like a trick. So there was a lot of like fighters that did it for a long time. There was one guy that was literally known as like TRT Vitor, right? Because he just was like the incarnation of steroid. And then eventually like that was banned, and so many guys basically, you know, right after that was banned, their body, which were like, you know, just onigiri muscle, became like super normal looking. It was one of the, I don't know if it was a big scandal per se, but like one of the kind of like obvious moments of people, you know, abusing the system, right? I guess there's probably stuff like that in every sport, you know.
To clear his name, including making up accusations against an innocent man which completely ruined his reputation, all in order to make the player seem like he was clean. And this actually worked. In October 2011, Ryan Braun set a record for having the highest testosterone ever recorded in a major league drug test. And according to the Daily News, it was twice as high as the person who previously held the record. This was the same season Braun won NL MVP, and up to that point, he had a start to his career that rivaled anyone's. After news of his positive test went public, Braun went into full-on denial. He blamed the person who handled his sample for not following protocol. Braun publicly hinted that he discovered some quote-unquote suspicious things about the man taking the sample. Braun even reportedly told players across the league that the man was a Cubs fan and was anti-Semitic. Ryan Braun is Jewish and claimed this could be why his test came up positive. But in reality, Braun was extremely aware his HGH and testosterone use probably had more to do with the positive test. The man who took Braun's sample was supposed to give it to FedEx to be shipped, but since FedEx was closing soon and the sample wouldn't be shipped until the next day, he waited to avoid the risk that the sample would be tampered or broken in the hands of FedEx. And apparently, this was enough to overturn Ryan Braun's suspension. The investigators found that the sample seal was never broken or tampered with, but still, waiting that extra day was technically against the rules and made the test invalid. A few months later, the man who decided to reverse the suspension was fired. Commissioner Bud Selig wanted Ryan Ryan Braun and anyone else doing PEDs suspended. And soon, he would get his wish because about a year later, Tony Bosch's empire began to crumble. In 2012, 2 of Tony Bosch's clients tested positive in 1 week. Bartolo Colon tested positive and was suspended 50 games. Bosch served Colon and exclusively referred to him by the nickname DUI. When he tested positive, he was 39 years old and was putting up his best ERA in 10 years. That same week, Melky Cabrera tested positive as well, only 1 week after winning the All-Star Game MVP award.
Who are these lovely ladies?
I'm thinking they're fine.
We got Mom here. Who else is here with you?
Thank you. Thank you.
He also made an extremely insane attempt to plead his innocence. Melky claimed he took a supplement that he saw advertised online that was fraudulently spiked with testosterone. This was a complete lie, but to back it up, Melky bought a...
That's a classic too. I mean, in the UFC, the biggest cheater that people know is John Jones, right? And multiple times been caught for doing something, and almost every time he basically claims that, you know, it came from like something that was tainted, right? He took something that's allowed, but supposedly there was something bad in it that he didn't know. Every time that's the excuse.
A website from a company for $10,000, then created a fake supplement with fake advertisements to convince MLB he had accidentally bought it online. They quickly discovered it was a fraud and suspended him 50 games. At this point, Bosch was in huge trouble. He knew this would likely lead to another DEA investigation and...
I mean, how much money has this guy made at this point? I mean, he's constantly being requested by like the biggest MLB player. They must be paying him like a ton. At this point, just take the money and run.
3 of his biggest clients were suspended and no longer wanted his service. So Bosch needed money to keep his business alive. And this is where Porter Fisher comes in. Porter Fisher was still some random guy who liked tanning and testosterone. But around this time, he was hit by a car while riding his bike and was rewarded a large amount of insurance money. Tony Bosch found out about this and convinced him to invest $4,000 of this money into the clinic, an investment Bosch never planned to pay back. As time went on, Porter Fisher became insanely upset about this. He stole all of Bosch's files, called a Miami newspaper, and exposed Tony Bosch and all the athletes he worked with.
All that over $4,000, I mean, there's no way that like everything he was doing, supplying steroids to the players, wasn't making him hundreds of thousands.
The Miami New Times used the files Porter Fisher stole to link Melky Cabrera, Bartolo Colon, Yasmani Grandal, Nelson Cruz, and Alex Rodriguez to Tony Bosch. Most people are unaware that MLB has something called the Department of Investigations, a group of former high-level ex-law enforcement and intelligence agents, which is essentially the FBI of MLB. So if there's any problems like a steroid scandal, the league can look into the matter themselves. MLB immediately sent this department to investigate every player and person involved in the scandal, and their main target was Alex Rodriguez. He'd already been busted for PEDs once, and many within MLB wanted to see him banned for life. So A-Rod used his millions and basically set up his own Department of Investigations to combat MLB's Department of Investigations. Over the next year, the two squared off and broke many laws while doing so. MLB and A-Rod's first priority was to obtain Tony Bosch's records, and the only person in the world who had these original files was Porter Fisher. A-Rod's camp offered him $10,000. Porter Fisher was scared Oogie might kill him if he didn't give them the files, so he did. A-Rod took these files and leaked the names of Ryan Braun and his own teammate Francisco Cervelli just to take some of the media attention off himself. Ryan Braun was suspended 65 games and said sorry for lying and ruining the urine collector's reputation.
I wish that I could go back and change things, but I don't have that opportunity to do that, so I'm just going to do everything.
Yeah, right. Seriously. The most classic apology, I mean, seriously.
Desperately wanted these files, but Porter Fisher knew that giving these files would put his life in great danger from A-Rod's camp. MLB offered to make Porter Fisher a full-time employee, paying him $1,000 a week. He said no. They offered him an additional $10,000. He said no. Then they offered him $125,000. He said no again. So they went a different, more illegal route. One day, Porter Fisher was going to take these original files to the Florida Health Department for evidence, but before he went, he stopped by the tanning salon. While Porter Fisher was in the tanning bed, somebody broke into his car and stole the files. They then took these stolen files and sold them to MLB for $125,000. Buying stolen files that were meant to go to the state of Florida for an active investigation seems pretty illegal. So the people who sold them these files filmed the transaction and then sold the footage to A-Rod so he could have more dirt on MLB. But when A-Rod got the hard drive, it was blank. So they basically sold A-Rod a blank hard drive for
Okay. Absolute cinema.
literally hundreds of thousands of dollars. At this point, A-Rod and MLB both have copies of Tony Bosch's files. MLB planned to use them as evidence to give A-Rod an extremely long suspension, but needed Tony Bosch to cooperate and confirm to a third party that the files were real. To convince him to cooperate, MLB investigators bought Bosch's girlfriend flowers and shoes. They also sued him and said if he did cooperate, they would drop the lawsuit. A-Rod's camp did not want this to happen, so they offered Tony Bosch $25,000 a month until the scandal blew over. They also were willing to pay him an additional $50,000 to flee the country and live in Colombia, so there was absolutely no risk of MLB getting him to cooperate. A-Rod's camp also leaked information to the media that the head of MLB's investigation slept with one of Tony Bosch's nurses. She was a potential witness, and this was not a good look, and caused MLB to later fire him. But before he was fired, he was able to get Tony Bosch.
Like, everybody is insane in this whole thing. I mean, I can't believe any of this is real. Like, it started pretty basic, right? Just some guy, like, you know, giving steroids to, like, players, and now it's like, everybody on both sides is insane. I mean, it's the most, like, American story I've ever heard. Everybody is insane.
To cooperate with
I mean, this literally sounds like it would be the plot of a GTA game.
MLB. Bosch turned down all of A-Rod's money, and because of this, Tony says he received a text, most likely from A-Rod's camp, that said he wouldn't live to see the end of the year. Tony Bosch then basically went on a full-out media tour giving his tell-all story under the direction of MLB. He most famously went on Outside the Lines, where he was visibly intoxicated.
No comment. I'm a nutritionist. I don't know anything about performance-enhancing drugs.
I had no idea what I was saying in that interview, to be quite honest with you.
He also did 60 Minutes and said he had drugs and alcohol waiting for him when he got to his dressing room. MLB suspended A-Rod 211 games, the biggest suspension in baseball history. But A-Rod was not done fighting. He appealed, continued to play, got booed, and got hit by pitches. That offseason, A-Rod and MLB went into an arbitration meeting where the two camps would tell their side of the story and an independent party would decide the suspension. Throughout the hearing, up to 150 people gathered to protest and even held a candlelight vigil in A-Rod's defense. The signs were all written in the same black marker, and apparently the protest was organized by Hispanics across America, an organization that reportedly received an anonymous donation for $100,000 to protest, leading many to speculate that A-Rod paid people to show up to support his fight against MLB, which didn't go particularly well. According to Tony Bosch, A-Rod told the arbitrator he thought he was taking an erect.
I mean, I don't want to be that guy, but this is like the most typical, like, athlete who have absolutely no idea how to spend money. I mean, this A-Rod guy, like, clearly, you know, he made a ton of money from cheating for many years. You know, it's bad that he's getting found out, right? He's probably going to have to pay some fine, but he's still gonna be rich. And yet, he's spending so much money on, like, trying to, like, stop the inevitable, right? Like, it's obvious that, you know, he's done, he's going to lose all this. And yet, he's wasting all his money on stupid stuff, like, you know, buying, like, the files from there, buying some protesters and stuff like that. It's just like, I mean, you know, I guess the story like fried his brain Yeah.
erectile dysfunction medication. Other reports say his lawyer almost got into a brawl with reporters and got into an altercation with Tony Bosch's lawyers. A-Rod was asked to stop after making weird faces towards Tony Bosch while he was talking, and eventually stormed out of the meeting, told Rob Manfred he was full of BS, went to WFAN, and famously said this.
And today I lost my mind. I banged the table and kicked a briefcase and slammed out of the room, and he doesn't have the courage to come look at me in the eye and tell me this is why I did 211. I shouldn't serve one inning. And this guy should come to my...
He would end up getting his suspension lowered to 162 games, which is still an MLB record. In the end, over 15 players would be suspended in relation to Tony Bosch. 3 of MLB's top investigators were later fired, likely because of what they did during this scandal. Tony Bosch himself only received a $5,000 fine from the state of Florida, but then the DEA stepped in, his chemist and his supplier Oogie were sentenced to prison, and Tony Bosch was given 4 years. His sentence has since been reduced, and he is now a free man. Currently, he is back in the industry owning a business which he describes as a technology company educating other anti-aging clinics, but promises he will never work with another professional athlete again.
I don't even know what to say. I don't even know what to say. I mean, absolute insanity all of this. I mean, this is definitely a movie plot at this point. Everybody is insane on both sides. I mean, yeah. I'm surprised no one died in all this. I mean, we were like this close to people paying hitman to kill someone. Literally this close. Yeah. All I can say is just like, what the fuck? What a story. Like, every time I watch a video about the MLB, I'm thinking like, you know, the fun is not actually like the game itself, it's like all the stories around it. Like, insanity. You couldn't write a better story than this, you know? You couldn't write something more interesting. It's unbelievable how just insane this is.